Hello, everyone. Let's start a topic on sustainability in supply management, which is a very timely topic when all countries and all nations are focusing on, the climate aspect, more environment friendly, net carbon zero initiatives. So it's really timely topic, to be discussed in this era. So, sustainability. So, we will talk about sustainability in general to set the stage about the perspective on sustainability, and then we will be little specific on how this can sustainability can be incorporated when we talk about supply management. So we all know that this sustainability perspective kind of initiated, though it has been realized for years and years, but formally it was the Brundtland Commission, in their World Commission on Environment and Development in 1987, right, which set the stage on sustainability practice, that it is economic practices or any development which meet the needs of the present, right, without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Means we cannot sacrifice tomorrow for today. So this, with this perspective, one can see that all the activities which can damage our ecosystem, our environment, our earth, our water, our air, which can be harmful and which can be uncomfortable or not safe, for the future generations to come, right, or not available, right, it can result in disaster. So now all nations have been conscious enough to propose initiatives in three aspects. They call it as 3p PPP, for planet, profit, or people. And more specific, when we talk about planet, right, we emphasize on all the initiatives, activities uh, which are good and safe for our environment. We talk about people or social, that means the people, or we talk about social sustainability, like how what efforts one should do for the well-being of society, the people, their health, their safety, their well-being, while working, right. So, and third is profit, uh, how to take care of your environmental and social sustainability by keeping the economic aspect intact. Means obviously every organization has to sustain in business, and it has to be profitable, but the triple bottom line says that how one can be profitable, right, in the same time can be environmental and socially sustainable. So that is like when companies would be able to achieve all these three aspects, then one can achieve sustainability. So we will use this triple bottom line aspect, right, and in that we there are many studies done on how to improve profitability and economic status. We would be emphasizing more on environment and social. So, when we say environment practices, right, so it is to protect and conserve the natural resources. That would be the emphasis, right? We can protect the natural resources, right, so that one cannot harm them, right, by polluting, or we can conserve, right, use it judiciously, right, or how we can reuse, right, recycle, right, all those aspects. When we talk about social practices in sustainability context, this will deal with social practices, safe and equitable treatment, fair. These days, every institutes have realized the importance of bringing diversity in the workplace. So, safe, equitable treatment in a fair manner, right? So, all those in and including health, uh, well-being of employees, that is also part of social practices. Definitely the focus of economic practices with more on profitability and improving the efficiency, right? These days, we also have to be little conscious about ethical operations. Again, this can be a part of social practices, but many a times, on the safer side, it can be missed or skipped, or because it has been perceived differently, it can be considered as, fourth or new pillar in the sustainability called ethical operations, where the governance and financial practices to be performed in ethical manner, right? So how the governance must behave, or how the governance must act, in more ethical manner, right? So that also has to be brought in as a new dimension of sustainability, or one more dimension of sustainability. So this actually covers, the scope mostly. So when we talk about sustainability, it is comprised of all these aspects. Now, when we talk about sustainability in supply chain, right, as in this course of strategic sourcing, we want to understand, like, how we can bring sustainability in supply management. But before that, because in supply management, there is always a discussion about supplier and buyer, which are two different entities, right? So where, which are part of supply chain, where, we already have seen it's a management of flow of information, right? Management of flow of products, right? And and the money, correct? But when we talk about sustainable supply chain, we have to manage these flows in environmentally safe manner. So the flow of information and the resources in most environmentally safe manner, and in a cost effective manner, considering, the social aspect like health, safety and social welfare among all supply chain entities, right? It can be primary, it can be secondary, because in any supply chain, if the stress had been on primary supply chain entities like supplier, manufacturer, distributor, retailer, these days, we have many other secondary entities. It can be the bank service or other services which are helping, in running the organization. So all entities which are involved in production, consumption, customer service, post disposal disposition of products, that is like, part of sustainable supply chain. So this is how we define sustainable supply chain, right? So this can be seen here, right? These days, the flow of goods, services and information, right? And you can say money also, right? So this is like, uh, is a classical supply chain, right? But these days, if we will add to that, the flow information of the return product or recycling product, means the intention is, to bring back, the products either after the end of life, right? Or if some defects have happened here, or some rework has happened here, can we just bring it back in the closed loop supply chain manner, right? Then it will become, the aspect of sustainability. And these days, to in context of sustainable supply chain, the goal of any supply chain should not be only efficiency and customer service, but also sustainability. So this is the broad aspect, where, one must capture the sustainability in supply chain. Okay, so one more interesting thing here, how it is different, that, the sustainability uh, practices by one organization versus supply chain organization, right? So what we can say that, if one entity, let's say manufacturing, if they are following all the norms, all the standard practices of sustainability, they are producing environment safe product, So their effort, can be very well acknowledged, but if those products are transported through some transportation vehicles which are actually polluting the environment, right? Probably due to fuel usage or due to the characteristics of the vehicle itself, the whole effort of this supply chain entity would go waste. So when we will say that, the overall what is the sustainability of supply chain, right? Then it will definitely come down, despite this one entity, say manufacturing, has spent a lot, or you can say has put a lot of effort in improving the sustainability. This is very important aspect, from supply chain angle. So these days, the other aspect in the supply chain one can see is that, the water consumption, the electricity consumption. When we see one entity, it might be lesser, but just imagine, the product which you are using, right? The clothes which we are wearing, right? The clothes which we buy, the garments which we buy, so how much water, electricity consumption has been gone, in producing it across supply chain. So once we would understand this aspect, of reporting the sustainability or consumption of such resources, think we would be very close to capturing the sustainability, right? Now, why sustainability? Why we are conscious about this one? And one has to be because resources like fresh water, raw material are becoming scarce. We have seen, like, China, who was the major producer of steel, right, because of the iron ores and good mines, right? Now the current situation of China is reverse, right? So that has been exploited a lot, that now they are no more the iron producer or steel producer. So you can see that if one has to understand such raw materials are scarce, and we need to have some strategies to either use judiciously, or bring back those resources, right, in the closed or reverse channel. Regulations are becoming more stringent. If you will see in India, the vehicles producing companies, they have been uh, uh, for the past recent years, they have moved from BS4, 5, 6 vehicles, like, to manage the pollution which can be caused by such vehicles. So such regulations are becoming more and more stringent. Aggressive targets to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and reducing energy consumptions, right? Nowadays, companies have to report, their status on, what is the energy consumption, right? And natural disasters. So one, its ultimate impact we do see in the climate change, right? And because of that, we have seen the natural disaster happens, in all parts of the world. And we are living, like, even the global has become local, right? Because any impact, any corner of the world gets impacted by any disaster, it has its ripple effect, all across the world, right? So that's why it is very important, to have a joint effort in achieving the sustainability. So there are lack of sustainable performance measures, right? Because we are dealing with different sectors, different kind of products, or different kind of services. It is it is very difficult, to set the standard performance measures across the industry, across companies, right? So also, like, the social sustainability, just like performance measures, right? The social sustainability also has to be perceived, like, in some standard form, which has not been done yet, right? Because for some industry, the social sustainability can be fair and the fair treatment in an organization. For some, social sustainability can be like the labor wages, like in construction. So this perspectives can be different, and mostly so far they have not been captured in industry. So it can be it can lead to financial, social, and reputational risk, right? So we will see that when it comes to social sustainability, the companies have not realized the importance of capturing social sustainability till they were badly affected, or their reputation or brand was at risk. So that's a good alarm and alert, to be cautious about social sustainability, right? So when we talk about environmental sustainability in supply chain, what do we how we can define sustainability, and how, we can perceive what one should do, right, when it comes to environment sustainability. So some of the companies, they can see environmental sustainability aspects in the input side, right? Input sides, for example, the resources and the resources they utilize or use. So whatever resources any company is using, it can be in the form of raw material, minerals, or it can be in the form of water, energy, electricity. So all those inputs, how we can minimize the use of those resources. This can be one aspect of, capturing the environmental sustainability. Like we have seen that the solar energy, wind energy, and many other renewable resources of energy are like mostly talked about these days, right? So whatever resources we are using from the input side of any organization, how one can address environmental sustainability by minimizing the use of resources. This is the input side. But for the same organization, what should be the output side? After producing the product, can we reduce the waste? Correct. So reduce the waste means, like your processes should be in place, the processes should be run in right manner, right? So that we can produce the least waste. Whatever we are producing, can we produce with a mindset of reusing it? So what can be reused, right? Can we think of, after the end of life of one product, that product can become, a useful thing, for the other supply chain. It might not be used as it is, but it can be used, like for some other product, right? So these days, we are using water bottles, like but now the same water bottles, after getting empty, one can use for gardening, or creating vertical gardens. Like how one can think of reusing the products. The other is recycling output products. So can we go for a thinking, though no doubt, the output, whatever the product is there, can it be recycled after the end of life, right? So it really needs a think through that, while designing the product or whatever materials we are using, right? From that stage onwards, one can think of recycling of the products, right? Toxic waste processing, right? How we can convert any toxic byproducts, or maybe the toxic element. What are the different ways, how we can process it so that it should not contaminate, like groundwater, right, or other facilities. So this is the environmental sustainability. When it comes, when somebody does not understand, how can I understand the environment sustainability, just see that what are the inputs, what are the resources you are using as an input in terms of water, electricity, minerals, raw materials, you know all those things, right, can be used judiciously, right? You minimize them. And on the output side, what is the end product? right? How much waste I have happened, the product which I'm producing, can it be reused, the material and each component part, the all those things, can it be recycled, right? And how to, if my industry is producing so much of toxic waste, what are the ways to process it? So think about that, that would help, to devise good strategies for environment, right? So that's what, one can go for such strategies like, avoid violation, right? Or environmental consideration in design stage onwards, like, at the very early stage, if one can include, for example, source reduction, reuse, recycle, incinerate, and landfill, right? Source reduction, design or use less, like, as I've said, in environmental thing, one can really go for, source reduction, right? Design or use less, right? So one can see that, can I go for, eco-friendly cars, right? Which is electricity based cards, like, so that can be one, this thing. Reuse, multiple use of same item such as package or container, right? So same packaging can be used, reused again and again, so this is again one of the aspect capturing environment sustainability. Can we recycle, right? Reprocess into raw material and then again send it to the supply chain, forward supply chain. Can we incinerate, right? We can extract energy, but definitely it creates carbon dioxide pollution, but one can see, like, the rate of incineration, and uh, be watchful of, like, it should not pollute this thing. The other is landfill. It requires space and transportation to store, right, which can be a potential impact on land and water. Okay, so these things, are the different possibilities, right? Right, or how one can uh, plan, the supply chain strategies as far as environment sustainability is concerned. Okay, the other aspects of environmental sustainability can be seen that, how can I reduce the waste, as I've mentioned, but this waste actually comes like in many forms. Okay, so reduce the vehicle idle time by optimizing the daily delivery schedule, right, and improve utilization. Okay, so now companies are becoming conscious. Here a lot of applications of operations research optimization comes, like, how can I aggregate the supply? Can I come up with best route, that so that, our vehicles are not on the road unnecessarily, right? Or, they are not utilizing lot of fuel, right? So focus on reducing pollution and fuel usage, right? Also, like, those third party logistics providers are now smart enough, like, how to aggregate the product so that the capacity of the vehicles are fully utilized. Okay, so such examples, right, of reducing the time, idle time, or, unnecessarily spending time in the routes if they are not optimized well, that would result in, like, lot of pollution, right? The more the vehicle will be on road, more it would pollute, right? So how you see that this examples leads to, the environmental sustainability. Similarly, how one can view as socially responsible supply chain. Okay, so I think we can, right? So social sustainability can be viewed as, like, how it can be prosperous, definitely, to economy, right? And safety, equality, and well-being, okay, of the workers or workforce should be taken care of, right? Nature care and good quality of life to current and future generation, right? This is the main aspect of social sustainability, right? And when it comes to social sustainability, it can be viewed in very different forms. Okay, so can we generate more jobs and increase income for poor, right? This can be another one of the aspects looking at socially responsible supply chain. we should reduce the cost and improve sales to emerging economies. That's another something for emerging economies. And shared values, like, from all the supply chain, are they creating shared values, like are they achieving, the sustainability thing, every whether this is the goal of each supply chain entity, whether they share the value of like achieving some social sustainability or environmental sustainability. Like, this is very important. As you can see, there is one example. Many companies, they come forward to procure from micro suppliers or producers, right? Many entities like Nestle, Coca-Cola, right, or even the Starbucks, they are directly procuring from the farmers, right, which are micro suppliers in the emerging economies, right? Emerging economies, the farmers are the owners of very small land holdings, so they cannot afford to access, the markets directly, right? So uh, for improving their quality of life, the companies are coming forward, right? The for profit organizations, they are coming forward, to deal with this micro suppliers, right? And not only that, if they are socially responsible companies, they want to generate, the employment in the rural sector or remote places, they hire people from, micro distributor retailers to the end consumers, right? So this is a one view of like viewing the socially responsible supply chains, where end-to-end supply chain is for, for the shared value principle of achieving the social sustainability, source from and distribute to emerging, poor or developing economies, integrate the interest of business and society into its business operations, right? So this is the objective when we form the social sustainability. So why, this has been like, challenging, because so such entities, they really lack of access to finance, right? They have lack of access to market, right? They are deprived of like recent or latest technology, or they are not updated with recent advancements, so that leads to low productivity also, right? But with the intention of socially responsible supply chain, one can, initiate certain things. The other similar aspect one can see is that, the tourism supply chain. Once we go to tourist spots, so most of the tourist spots, they encourage the local handcraft vendors, or the or maybe, the event performers or the folk dancer, folk music singers, like, they invite them, at various tourist spots where mostly the tourists all across the world comes. So this is another way of like, procuring the services, from the local arena, so that, the social uh, welfare can be imparted, to the local or remote places. So this is the one of the aspect of, social sustainability from supply chain perspective. Another aspect, you can see what Unilever has started Shakti program. It provides sales training, bookkeeping and entrepreneurship training to female participants, so that they can become Shakti distributor. They are also called Shakti Ammas. They arrange for micro loans through microfinance institutions. Now you see, this is also some kind of supply chain where, microfinance institutions come, they provide micro loans to the women entrepreneurs, like, who have been trained, on day-to-day financial activities, how to spend, how to save, how to do bookkeeping, all that, to enable these Shaktis to carry adequate stocks of Unilever products to sell in 6 to 10 villages. So you see that, there is a job employment one can see which improves due to these products. Like 70,000 Shakti entrepreneurs were already like, established in 2017, right, which have and these employees have actually sold 162,000 villages, right, to reach over 4 million rural households, right. This is how one can reach out to the rural household, utilizing those rural ecosystem, to provide employment and also access to the products, like, even the markets, right. So this is, we have already seen that what is social sustainability says. But at the same time, what are the what can be the consequences also, like on the social front, right? If one does not like social risks, we can say, like, what can be the risks, one can face, if social sustainability is compromised, right? For example, Toyota faced problems of malfunctioning brake pedal design, right? So outsourced from one of the supply chain partner. Definitely when a company like Toyota, if some fault has been identified, or like, found after the vehicle has been sold or it's running on the roads, right? So that obviously the onus will come on the company which has assembled the vehicle and sold this thing, because that brand name goes into that vehicle, right? But when the if some fault happens, and because of that, it is found that, it is not happening in one car, that means it is the batch, particular batch which has been produced, right? So if that has to be recalled, right? So you can see that recalling and then compensating, so huge loss, huge cost has gone inside. So that means, like, there is a big loss of consumer confidence, right? There is a monetary loss, there is a loss of consumer confidence, and that result in reputation risk. Okay, so one can see, like, social sustainability from that angle also, that one has to be very careful, like, the reputation risk can be there, right? So uh, one, if identified that, why the supplier, one of the supplier which has supplied, the malfunction product, why it has happened, why and how that quality has been compromised, right? What could be the root cause? Okay, so if those aspects are not well taken care, right, so that results in, the social sustainability laws, right? So Ford Motor Company, there is another excellence example, like asked more than 5,000 to obtain a third party certification of environment management system for their manufacturing plant, right? So which awareness, so these are the various aspects, one can see, compromise on social sustainability, or how, companies are, like, putting efforts in making not only their own but the whole supply chain sustainability conscious, right? So for example, Ford has encouraged 5,000 suppliers to obtain third party certification for EMS. So these are the various aspects, we see sustainability around, right? So there is always a debate when it comes to sustainability, that the environment sustainability or social sustainability can be penetrated in an organization at some cost, right? Which is not a true, it's a kind of myth, because Forbes report that, General Motor is seeing 1 billion revenue stream by recycling waste. Okay, so and one more thing is that, one can be a little conscious that, the products, the high tech products, they become obsolete very quickly. They're actually the shelf life is very low, right? Just imagine, the way we are using mobiles, handsets, the way we are using personal computers, laptops, like, the rate at which we are buying, how much e-waste we are going to create. Okay, so if there is a little control on this side, can we think of, like, some other aspects, like, pay attention to returns process, right? Can we recycle, right? So those aspects, like, which would definitely, like, which might look like, it's a there are only small margins, right? This thing, or they can think that, it is a complex network of getting the returns or recycling. But if you will see a bigger picture overall, right, so it can actually, result in buying of lesser raw material. For example, like, if the manufacturing or auto companies, if they have to buy whether to buy a steel, like, as a fresh, or, if a recycled steel, like, the old cars, or, the damaged cars or end of life cars, from there if we would extract back the steel, that would be equally good, to be used. Now you see the price at which we would buy the reused material might come down, then, steel which is coming from, like, processed after the ores, iron ores. So this is like, we have to really see, the whole life cycle of the product, then one can decide, and it would always turn out to be the sustainability efforts are always beneficial. Similar thing one can see in auto batteries, like they are recycled because 80% of the materials are like recyclable. But only thing is, it contains hazardous materials which is risky to health and environment. So but raw material, right, we know that, like lithium, are such kind of raw material are really either they are scarce, or it is difficult to extract, or so uh, uh, this is the right time, to devise some strategies or methods to extract, raw material, right, so that one can recycle and use it in the new products. So this is the various aspects one can see, the in the supply chain related to sustainability, right? So we will talk about sustainability in context of supply management soon.